Hey everybody, it's another one of these here episodes of the Atheist Experience. I'm your host, Russell Glasser, and with me today is my good friend, Jen Peeples.
Hi, how you doing?
Pretty good, how are you?
Good.
Great. Today is Sunday, March 13th, 2011, and if you're seeing what I'm seeing, then I am covered with colored bars.
Oh, yeah.
The joys of live call-in public access television shows. We are based in Austin, Texas, and we are dedicated to promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We are also available to an international audience through our live stream at ustream.tv. Check out the website for more details about the show. And our parent organization, the Atheist Community of Austin, at www.atheist-community.org. You can also provide feedback for the show by visiting the show blog, atheistexperience.blogspot.com with no dash, or email us at tv@atheist-community.org. If you enjoy the show today and you are here in Austin, Texas, then you can come and join us for dinner beginning around 6 o'clock, half an hour after the show ends, at El Arroyo, located at 1624 West 5th Street in Austin. What's up today, Jen?
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about positive atheism and what that means, because there seems to be some confusion about exactly what that means and where that term came from.
Right. Well, it is in our tagline,
yes.
So it would be good for people to know more about that.
Okay. Yeah, we get email from time to time, usually someone very concerned because we've done something on the show that could potentially offend some theist of some stripe or another. And we're often told, you're not promoting positive atheism. So
And they're so difficult to offend, too.
Yes, yes. And actually, emails like that, statements like that, I put that in the same category as the admonishment to don't be a dick. And I guess people probably know what we think about that by now.
Promoted by the very excellent Phil Platt, who has done great work blogging about astronomy and not so much about atheism.
Right, yeah.
But I remember when I was up in Seattle and one of the people there asked me, what do I think about being a dick? I said, be a dick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, our position here has always been that if you have ridiculous beliefs, then those deserve ridicule. And that mockery is an excellent technique properly used. And
I'm all for it. Big fan of The Daily Show.
Yep. Yes, exactly. So I wanted to sort of enlighten people about positive atheism and what that means and where that term came from. Okay, the term positive atheism, it was actually it came into wide use, I think, in like 1976 when Anthony Flew used it, and then since then Michael Martin has also used it. So it's kind of in use among the philosophers. I'm not heavily into philosophy, but this is the definition that they give to it, and it's one that I've always associated with positive atheism. Okay. And it's the position that the claim at least one God exists is false. So in that sense, it's very much, very closely related to the strong atheist position. Okay. Okay. However, promoting positive atheist culture, which is what we actually have on our website, there's some implications for positive atheism, whether you think of it in terms of the strong atheist definition or the weak atheist definition. Basically, I don't believe a God exists, or I don't have enough evidence to accept the claim. However you define it, there's some implications here that go beyond just the philosophical. And that is that if you want to make a difference, you got to get off your knees and do something. Because if we believe that a God doesn't exist, either we just don't believe or we believe that there actually are no gods. Either way, it's up to us to make a difference. And I think that in light of what happened in Japan this week, it's pretty interesting that the Facebook and Twitter and all these social networking sites have just exploded with people saying, pray for Japan and all this stuff. It's like,
Right.
don't pray for Japan.
We're talking about the nuclear meltdown for people who are not listening in the year 2011.
Yes.
Because people do listen to us in the future.
Yes. Yes. The nuclear. Well, not only that, the earthquake, the tsunami, and now the situation at the nuclear plants there. So don't pray for Japan. Actually, find out what you can actually do to help Japan right now, and maybe that's give to the Red Cross or another charity of your choice.
Right. I feel like the positive atheism in our tagline does have a certain amount to do with presenting a positive image for atheism. I've been with the show for a good chunk of its, 14, 15-year run, and way back in the day, we used to always close out the show with by saying, we don't hate you, we just think you're wrong. And then we would have these cheesy special effects, which we called our love rings, which we would send out to people, because, we are trying to counteract some of the popular culture stuff that says that atheists are just sinners and trying to lead you into, they're all devil worshippers and stuff.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't think that it's good policy to shy away from anything that will offend people, because people these days seem to be getting aggressively offended.
Right.
You use their offense as a weapon. And frankly, I don't think that you have the right to not hear stuff that offends you. And really, the very existence of atheism is offensive to people who believe that the only way to eternal life for their kids and their loved ones is to accept Jesus, and here we are leading them down a path to damnation, in their opinion.
And in that light, I would say that we've had some recent conversations with people from the Stone Church in Austin, and I think those conversations were very respectful of the individuals that we were talking to. And not so much for their beliefs. And so I think that in terms of presenting atheism in a positive light, promoting positive atheist culture, however you want to define that, I think those actually, that is what we're talking about when we talk about positive atheism. It's being completely uncompromising when we're talking about somebody's beliefs and how they justify them, but at the same time respecting the individuals.
Right.
And that's what it's all about. It's not pretending that all beliefs are equally meritorious, or that you have to soft pedal the bad parts of somebody's argument just so that you don't offend them. I'm not about that, and I don't think anybody in the ACA is all about that.
Right. So I think it's important in general to be friendly to people and to, to present a positive face on things in general, but it's also important not to be, it's not really respectful to somebody to sort of tap dance around their beliefs and pretend that you don't have a problem with something that you actually do. I mean, it's, in a way, it's not taking their belief seriously.
Yeah.
Actually, on a related note, Linnea and I happened to be on the UT campus this weekend, and there's a Scientology center there.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, actually, I did know that.
Yeah. So we decided to swing in, and we weren't really sure what we were going to do, but we wound up having a really nice conversation with the guy. I mean, on the one hand, we told him, well, we're atheists. I do a show called The Atheist Experience, and I'm not going to take your beliefs very seriously, but you must get a bunch of really annoying people in here. What's that like? And he told us what he thinks, and I pointed out that a lot of what he regards as evidence is sort of anecdotal and based on personal opinions of L. Ron Hubbard. But I wasn't, as Phil Platt might say, screaming in his face calling him a moron.
Yeah.
So, is that it already? Time for callers?
Yeah, and I've just got a note here from the producers that some people have made a point that people overly credit God for recovery in Japan, and could we address that?
People overly credit God for everything.
Yeah.
What's also interesting to me is that a bunch of Facebook statuses showed up saying, well, it serves them right for Pearl Harbor, which is disgusting. I mean, hardly any of those people are even alive now.
Yeah, exactly. But it does show that religion kind of infects how we think about things, because that kind of reminds me of this whole concept of corruption of blood. That whatever your ancestors did, you bear the sins of your ancestors as well as your own, which is a thoroughly religious concept that invaded English law years ago. So,
but as far as God getting credit for the recovery, I mean, it's often said that God can't lose. So basically, here are the possibilities. No disaster ever happens and people just lead peaceful and eventful lives. That's God making everything
God's taking
okay.
care of us,
Small bad thing happens, could have been worse.
God
gets credit
intervened,
for that. Big bad thing happens, everybody dies except one person. The one person credits God for saving him.
And it's a miracle.
And if every single person on earth dies, nobody's around to to blame him. So, really, he can't lose.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to start with Jason in Denver, Colorado. How are you today?
Hey guys, I'm doing great. My question is about evolution morality. I'm trying to shore up some of my own arguments on this subject. And so what we have is, we often use evolution to express how morality has developed. In a social context, within the context of, how society needs to function. And so we develop our sense of morality from that.
Okay.
Would you guys agree with that?
Only partly.
Okay, so when a lot of people express themselves, and try to justify why do we have morality, we point back to evolution quite often to say, well, this is how we've developed, this is our social structure, this is why.
Right, and using evolutionary psychology can give a good general overview of why people have the impulse to stay moral. But at the same time, it's important not to treat scientific facts as some kind of moral imperative. Right? I mean, that's how they justified stuff like what they called social Darwinism, where it was like, well, we should just let all the poor people starve because then everybody who's left would be more fit.
Right.
There's still some people...
Doesn't that make sense in a way? Like when you think about the function of evolution, it would strengthen the gene pool and assist in natural selection if we did allow, or exterminate inferior or lesser people.
Yeah, but let me ask you this. I mean, who is morality for? I mean, if you're saying in the abstract it's okay for the unfit people to be weeded out, and then it turns out that you are one of the unfit people, are you still cool with that philosophy?
Well, I'm not talking from my own perspective. I'm talking more from an evolutionary perspective.
Yeah, but who cares? But I mean, evolution isn't a thing. It doesn't have feelings. It doesn't have desires. And as far as humans are concerned, the point of having morality is to make things good for us.
So why do we even use evolution to justify morality at all?
I don't know that we use it to justify it. I think we just use it to explain how we have these impulses.
Yeah, I mean, the evolutionary argument acknowledges the reality that we evolved as social creatures. And so because of that, we kind of have this innate pull toward empathy especially with our own kind.
So what would you guys use to justify morality? Besides, like, just my own desires or wants or needs, because everyone has different, and they can all conflict with each other. So what, if you're not using evolution, what principle are you using to justify good behavior, moral behavior, if it's not based on an evolutionary process?
Right. Well, I mean, essentially, you're dealing with one of the many extremely complicated problems in philosophy. And one of the things that religion tries to do is come along and say that this is all explained if you just make up a God, which is really no more satisfying to attribute it to one authority outside of us, whether you're attributing it to God or some abstract natural forces. I mean, for instance, suppose that there is a God, but we're not his chosen people. It turns out that his chosen people are some bug-eyed aliens off on Alpha Centauri. And it turns out that in the divine purpose of God, the only reason that humans exist is that someday in a few millennia, we're going to make a tasty snack for them on the way across to the other side of the galaxy. We don't find, I mean, however much we may think that adhering to some outside external forces of morality may be a good thing in the abstract, when push comes to shove, really morality is about making our own lives good. I mean, the reason that I don't want other people to steal from me is because I want to keep my stuff. And so I'm willing to live in a society that basically enforces no stealing on everybody, including me.
Right.
So would it be fair to say that kind of what you're saying is that religion doesn't have a good answer for it?
Oh yeah, definitely not.
Religion has no good answers.
Look up the Euthyphro dilemma to see why that doesn't really solve the problem.
Right. Well, that was one half of my point. The other half is that so we as atheists don't have a good answer either.
No. I think that what you have to look at is, I guess Matt's used this a few times. It's that one of the things that we value as humans is this concept of well-being. Okay, and well-being is kind of a vague thing. But think of it in terms of, which is preferable to you, health or sickness. Most people prefer to be healthy. Okay.
Right, but why should I value the well-being of someone else?
Because it's intrinsically, we're social species, and it's
right,
intrinsically tied to us.
That goes back to the evolution argument, and that's why I was saying we go back to that evolutionary point, but it breaks down.
Why does it break down?
Well, the point I was originally making, how based on natural selection, we should weed out the inferior and the lesser, based on evolution. So if we're going to go back to that as a catalyst for.
But again, go on.
But that gets down to, I prefer health over sickness. I prefer life over death, and so do other people. And so we make rules that benefit all of us collectively. Because if I say that we're going to weed out the inferior people, and I buy into that rule, one day I might be categorized as one of the inferior people, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm not likely to sign up for a rule that says we kill all the inferior people.
Right. It might help if you take a look at the philosopher, I think it was John Rawls, who said that one of the ways that we can arrive at a just society is that we design it as if we were looking at it through a veil of ignorance. So let's say that I don't know anything about my role in society. I don't know if I'm going to be especially strong or weak. I don't know if I'm going to be mentally retarded. I don't know if there's slaves in the society. I don't know whether I'm going to be a slave. And then the question is, how can I create the optimal society for me that I will be comfortable with living in, regardless of how that roll of the dice, let's say, turns out for me.
So what if I'm that person of ignorance, coming into society, but I have, for instance, some kind of terrible disease that if I spread it to other humans, it's going to kill all mankind or something like that. And so, there is a point where we would have to say, we need to eliminate the danger or the harm or, whatever in order to better serve the larger.
Right, and I mean, if you look at that in practice, we do in fact quarantine people, but that's something that people would feel morally squishy about. And the thing is, we can't just pretend that those morally squishy areas don't exist. There are gray areas that are difficult because we have these principles. They sometimes conflict with each other, and there's never necessarily a clear-cut answer as to which principle wins every time. But we just do the best we can, and it's better if we're honest with ourselves about the process by which we're making these decisions so that we can make the best decision we possibly can.
Okay.
Well, and this is one of the reasons that religion fails, because it gives you this supposed book of absolute rules that you're supposed to follow. But a lot of times real life doesn't fit into a neat little rule. And so that's where we have to apply some judgment. And morality does come down to judgments. We make judgment calls about different things all the time.
Because the question I get from theists is like, well, how can you condemn what Hitler did because he was trying to, be selective and better humanity as a whole by, eliminating the lesser and stuff.
Oh, how can I condemn a murderer? Because I don't want to be murdered.
How can you condemn someone using the course of natural selection? Or
That's not natural selection.
That's not natural selection. When you go and kill somebody, that is not natural. That is a guy going and killing people.
Yeah. And point to one social species on the planet that routinely endorses, its members killing each other off for no apparent reason.
Right. I mean, the important thing to bear in mind is they're trying to get you into a position where you'll say, okay, well, maybe you need God to be moral. But I mean, the fact is, those things which they take credit for, like don't kill and don't steal, I mean, those were codified into law in primitive societies way before these monotheistic religions came up. I mean, it's more of a practical matter of hey, a lot of people are dying in that village over there. How do we deal with it? Or a lot of people are coming over here and killing us. So how about we band together and fight them off, and then we make rules about that sort of thing so that we don't have to live with that kind of constant threat on our lives.
Okay.
And of course, religion doesn't do it because, I mean, if you're going to take Hitler as an example, Hitler said that he was doing what Jesus would have wanted by exterminating the Jews. Martin Luther, who helped to spin off Protestantism from what at the time was only the Catholic Church, wrote some horribly, horribly anti-Semitic stuff about how the Jews are full of lies and should all die. So, if you're asking where you get your... If you're
themselves from those people.
Yeah, and if you're asking where you get your morality from, it sure ain't that book.
Yeah.
Right, I agree with that, yeah. Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, guys.
Okay, thanks for calling. Hope we helped out. And we're going to move on to, well, we're a little dicey about this one. I'm going to stall on that one. Paul in Boston is next.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I'm not so sure that my call will be as interesting, and certainly it won't be as philosophical as the previous one.
That's okay. We get all kinds.
Which, of course, is good. But you've covered many times on your show the aspect of religion where it plays on fear. Fear of hell, dying and going to hell, and so you got to be good so that doesn't happen. And I thought I'd share something that happened in my childhood that might be interesting to both theists and atheists.
Okay. Just try to move kind of quickly on it because we only have an hour show, but we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I will. I'll try to make it quick.
Okay.
This comes from another country about 60 years ago where Catholicism was treated very. What's the term I'm looking for? A strict interpretation. And when I was young, I'd like to refer to what the Holy Eucharist, for example, and we were told that the host is the body of God, and that's I think is still believed. And to impress on me as a child, I was 6 years old. In those days, you never touched the host; it was always put on your tongue by the priest. And you had to respect it. And we were told the story of a person who didn't believe that it was the body of God, and there was a little girl, and she bit the host, and blood came out of her mouth. So in my first communion, I bit the host. Now, I mean, that sounds like almost a trivial story today, but the thing about that is that I was engulfed in fear. You know, it was a very crucial time in my life. And even after that happened, I lived in fear of what would happen to me. Even in my own physical life, never mind an afterlife, probably until I was about my mid-teens. I think it took the military to finally dissipate the fear. And then I think I've been leading a pretty normal life. But the 2 points I want to make is how, first of all, is how terrible it is that a person like myself lived for years as a child, engulfed in fear, and I had nightmares and all kinds of things. And the second thing is that when you tell ridiculous stories like that, as religions do, you're always going to get some kid who's going to bite the host. I mean, you know, you're a kid, you don't know much. You know, someone says don't jump off that cliff, and you know, 1 or 2 kids will. So, you know, now I look back 60 years later, and I look at this as being so entirely silly. I don't know. But I thought I would share it with you guys for whatever value it was for your listeners.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Okay,
thanks
bye.
very much for your call.
Bye.
You know, it seems to me that this technique of not just telling somebody not to do something, but then making up a story where it's
Right.
somebody like you is you know, a very common rhetorical trick with religions and also with movies. I've mentioned this before. You know, movies that are trying to promote the supernatural or like horror movies always have like a skeptic character who says, "Oh, that's all ridiculous," and then the shark eats him or whatever. You know, it's a cheap proxy to try to get you to drop your skepticism because you know, it's like, here's someone who was skeptical and he died.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. All right, I'm just going to keep going in order. Paul in Tel Aviv, Israel. Here's a distant
Hello.
Paul. Hi.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good.
Fine, thanks.
Okay. To begin with, I am an atheist.
Okay.
And
Were you
very
born in
briefly, before I
Israel?
get to my question, I just wanted to comment on the first caller, Jason, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Dawkins very often talks about the fact that regardless of the fact that everything involved with evolution, Darwinistic society is not something he'd be very happy about living in. You know, just because
Right.
we evolved, it has nothing to do with the fact that we approach our society as one which would be Darwinistic.
Right. I mean, that would be like saying, you know, there's gravity, so we shouldn't make airplanes. I mean, because it's against the
Right.
laws of nature for us to go up in the air. That's
There you
just
go.
a non-starter argument.
Exactly. And second point is, for the first time, actually reminded me of the Ayn Rand philosophy, the virtue of selfishness. But I don't want to digress too much, namely because I want to keep this short because I find that theist callers are much more amusing than atheist callers, so, you know, I don't want to take too much of the time there.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anything
anyhow,
else?
just wanted to touch upon something I don't hear about very often is the myth of the Virgin Mary. And I know I'm not bringing up anything new by mentioning the fact that the whole thing is a result of a mistranslation. And it's just astounding to me that this doesn't get more exposure than it does. I mean, this is something that, you know, Christians are, you know, just adhere to as strongly as they do, you know, to the life of Jesus Christ himself. And, you know, you take away the virgin birth and, well, it seems to me that the whole thing falls apart. Of course, I never underestimate the power of denial. Regardless of this, you know, it's the result of mistranslation. I'm sure it wouldn't be too difficult to get anybody to agree to the fact that the Bible was not written originally in English, the fact that people who translate things are fallible, and you can just look it up. I mean, it's right there. And it's amazing to me it doesn't get more exposure, and I just want to know what your take was on that.
I think many biblical scholars have pointed out that that's a mistranslation. So I think it's, you know, that information's not a secret. It's out there.
Oh, yeah.
It's just that I think that in many respects, people that insist that it is actually saying she's a virgin, they're pretty emotionally invested in that, and
Right.
people that taught them that at an early age, they themselves were not very literate in these ancient languages, and so they couldn't tell the difference between young woman and virgin in there. And so, this error just gets propagated through the generations, and unfortunately, by the time you get to a point where you can correct it, people are so emotionally invested in it they just won't give it up.
Right, and I mean, here's another thing is, I think it can be kind of a rhetorical dead end to try to argue about, what the Bible really means. Because, if there's even a possible interpretation of that word, which could be taken as being, as meaning virgin, then they would say, oh, well, you admit that it's possible that they could have meant virgin, and, they jump all over that. One of my favorite scenes in the life of Brian by Monty Python. You know the one I'm talking about.
Mine too.
They're like, are you a virgin? And she gets mad and slams the door, and they're like, oh, she must be.
Yeah.
It's really more about what they want to believe, and if there's no proof that directly contradicts their beliefs, then they're going to find a way to weasel out of it, and you're going to waste a lot of time trying to chase down the meaning of that word, which is why, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have that in mind and have scholarly studies that back you up saying this is what the word really means. But I think you'll get super sidetracked from the issue of, what reason do you have to believe that God really exists, which is kind of the main question.
Well, and not only that, it will seriously detract from mocking the fact that they think that someone who's a virgin could give birth.
Right, because even if the Bible did say that, so what? The Bible says a lot of crazy stuff. It says talking snakes, so for example. So I think it's fair to say that you don't need to worry about how seriously you can take the stuff even that is translated correctly.
Yeah, so in other words, this is something that's going to get treated just about in the same manner that any other argument gets treated. It'll all boil down to the fact that, well, regardless of how logical your argument is, I believe what I believe.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't like to talk to those people very much because
Why not? It has such great entertainment value.
Well, I'll leave you something. I'll leave you with something even more entertaining. I was on a Catholic website not that long ago, and it was talking about this hypothesis about how the Holy Ghost impregnated Mary, allegedly. Because some people were questioning, hey, was there actually a sexual act with the Holy Ghost? And the answer was no. Mary was not impregnated through the naughty bits. It was through her ear canal. And this is
no.
Oh no, this
You're
is
making this up.
No, I'm serious. This was on a Catholic website. It was presented as a serious deal.
And that's the thing. They're just going to make up stuff that sounds good to them, and they're not going to care whether there's any reason they would possibly know that.
And all I could think of was oral insemination. Are you kidding me? So girls, cover your ears.
Maybe it's not as naughty as the standard procedure, but it sounds a lot more disgusting.
Well, it sort of like brings new light to that limerick about the man from Nantucket, right?
Okay, I guess we're a little over half done, and I think we're going to move on.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for calling. Very entertaining. See ya. And of course, if you are in the Austin area, once again, you can join us right after the show at El Arroyo in lovely downtown Austin. And so next we're going to go on to Tommy in Bloomington, Indiana. Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Don't you not see that God exists because of the phenomena that's happening around the world, such as like in Japan for some reason? Well, there's a reason why Japan has an earthquake. It's due to the fact that most of them doesn't believe in God, the Christian God, Jesus Christ, our Savior.
So you're saying bad things only happen to bad people?
no bad things happen to those who doesn't believe in Jesus Christ.
And they never happen to believers.
Yeah.
Well, they happen to believers by Jesus, God has a future plan for them in heaven.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your call, and that's a very amusing voice that you've got there. But work the comedy clubs a little more, and then try it again.
Yeah.
Let's see. Ashley in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Hey, you guys can actually hear me.
Hi. Yes.
Yeah.
The phones,
that's great.
You know,
I
the
love
phones
your
are
show.
working
I
really
just
well
wanna
this
say
week.
that off the
Yeah.
top.
Thank you. What's up?
Okay, so I'm an atheist. I live in Pittsburgh. I'm actually one of the lucky atheists. I was born into Buddhism, and I just kept on with my atheism. I had a question with a friend the other day that I thought was odd, but I did want to get somebody else's perspective of this, and that was, he was telling me that evolution doesn't exist. And I said, yes, it does. We are not descendants from monkeys or apes. We have an ancestral being that we all are consistent with. And he said to me that, well, I can have sex with my cousin, but I can't have sex with an ape. So I told him to go ahead and have sex with an ape. I mean, and you think that you could do that, but that's a weird analogy for me, because if you really sit up there and think about it, it's like we do have an ancestral being that we are all connected to, and I understand that.
I mean, I'm not sure that you understand it fully, because the point of evolution is not just that we're connected to monkeys, but that if you go back far enough, we are connected to every single life form on the planet. So in order for that argument to even mean anything, he'd have to also be arguing that he could have sex with an ear of corn.
Yeah. Which I guess you
I
could.
mean, I guess I get what you're saying on that point.
But I think it says in the call notes here that he also said that you could not impregnate a monkey. Is
exactly,
that
yeah.
right?
That's exactly what he says. Like, I could have sex with my cousin, and I could get her pregnant, but I can't have sex with a monkey or a chimp or whatever you call it, and get them impregnated. And I had no answer to that.
Well, why don't you congratulate your friend for inventing the concept of a species?
Yeah.
That's what it means, is any division where you cannot have viable offspring. But, you know, the definition of species is actually really kind of weird and fuzzy, because scientists say that two things are separate species if they can't interbreed, but the meaning of can't is kind of nebulous, because like there are two species of grasshoppers, for instance, that make different sounding songs. And the females...
Can I interject just for 1 second? Is that you can interbreed dogs, and that was kind of the point that I was telling them, is that, like, we are the same species.
Dogs are a
species. The sense that you can interbreed dogs, because dogs are the same species. They are what they are. They're dogs. We are primates. And so then that's when he posed the question to me as to, well, I can't have sex with a monkey and have a child.
Well, yeah, and that's, I mean, what Russell was getting at with the species concept, I happen to like cats, so I'll use cats as an example here. One of the ways
but
that you...
not in that way.
No, not in that way. No, there are actually some domestic breeds of cat that rely on the use of a wild cat and a domestic cat, okay? And so one of these breeds is called a savanna cat, okay? And you take a male serval, which is a type of forest cat, or I guess a jungle cat in Africa, and you breed the male serval to a female domestic cat, and what you get are hybrids, okay? They're 50% wild, 50% domestic, okay? And what you see in that's called the F1 generation, okay? What you see in that F1 generation is that the females are all fertile. the males are sterile. And so what that
Oh, wow.
what that tells
know
you,
that.
yeah, that what that tells you is that these two species of cats they're actually separate species. They don't produce 100% fertile offspring. The offspring are viable. So that tells you that those two cats diverged from an evolutionary standpoint fairly recently. So they have a recent common ancestor. Recent meaning probably, a couple million years even. But, enough for them to develop, divergent mating patterns, divergent, physical characteristics and everything. And so now you've got these hybrids. Okay, so if you breed, what normally happens at that point is they introduce a domestic male cat to breed with the fertile F1 females.
Okay, I understand that.
Then you get the F2 generation, okay? F2 males are usually still sterile. F2 females are fertile, okay? It's only when you get to the third generation that you start getting fertile males, okay? So that...
I kind of understand that.
Okay, so that's speciation is not something that's like, boom, you can't interbreed here or there. There's a gray area, but whether you produce a viable offspring or not, and whether that offspring is fertile, tells you a lot about whether, when
it
those
tells
two
you
lineages
that if you just
diverged.
dumped those cats and wildcats into the wild in a mixed population together, you would not be able to get an interbred, without human intervention, new species.
And in fact, you probably wouldn't even get an F1 cross because the mating patterns are so different between the two that the only way you can get the male serval to breed with the domestic female cat is to actually take the young male servals away from their mother and foster them with domestic female cats.
Oh, wow.
So because the mating patterns are different. Right. So, there's a lot of manipulation that has to occur in order to get, two species to interbreed like this. We see the same thing happening with mules, for example. We've got horses and donkeys that are crossed.
Or the combination of the two.
And so what you get is a viable offspring, but they're infertile.
Well, I wasn't talking about the social.
Well, actually,
interaction.
I think we're running out of time here, so I'd like to get on to some more callers. But real quick, I would recommend. Actually, I haven't read it yet, but Richard Dawkins' Greatest Show on Earth should be a pretty good intro to evolution.
But I guess to follow up on that, humans and chimps diverged about 6 million years ago, so it's long enough that we probably can't interbreed.
Right. So, okay, thanks for calling.
Right, thanks.
All right, thank you guys. I love you.
No problem.
Thanks.
I love you too. Okay, we got Bill in Wayne, New Jersey. Hello, Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Hi, how are you? I recognize you guys are a little pressed for time, so I'm going to make my points briefly.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Okay. I believe I have proof for God, and I believe I have proof for alternate argument against alternate arguments. But before I do, I just want to, it's very important to have a definition of God to go with.
Okay.
All right.
Because I have a problem with deists and pantheists. I think these people are just trying to hedge their bets.
So you think that God has to be conscious, sentient, thinking?
My definition of God is an omniscient, omnipresent being that created the universe, that can hear our prayers. Because if God wouldn't hear our prayers, then why would we pray to Him? It would make no sense. So I think people hedge their bets.
It seems like you're starting from a conclusion that you want to be true, and then just saying it wouldn't make sense if it weren't.
Well, what I'm saying is I'm arguing against some of the other definitions of God. I'm saying that if people say, I think there's intelligence to the universe, you wouldn't pray just to some intelligence unless you believe that praying would actually change something.
Okay, so we agree that people believe that praying to something does something.
Exactly. Well, people, if you only thought that God was the thing that created everything, there'd be no reason to pray.
Okay,
You're
so it's a personal God.
Because you believe that.
All right, prove it.
Now, there's this concept that people hedge their bets. They say there's just an intelligence of the universe, and that's not God. That's the Force from Star Wars. And
I'll go with that.
I have proof. Pardon me?
Okay.
Okay, and I have proof that does not exist. I have proof that there's non-intelligence in the universe. And simply, have you ever watched pro wrestling or the show Jersey Shore? It's obvious there's no intelligence in a lot of parts of the universe.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we know that God is a man in a white robe who has a beard, who looks a lot like Zeus. And we know this because we learned this earlier in Rome. We were pagans that were polytheists until Jesus came along and taught us to become monotheists and worship the Holy Trinity.
Okay.
Okay.
So he said we have to be monotheists. We have to worship the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, and Virgin Mary and the saints. So we
He
can't be
didn't
polytheists
actually. I
anymore.
don't think Jesus actually said worship the Virgin Mary.
Yeah, he didn't.
Okay.
Didn't actually say that.
He didn't say, all right, well, just to worship the Holy Trinity. There's three separate things.
Okay.
So we wouldn't be
Actually, I don't
polytheists
even think
anymore.
he said
Yeah, he
worship
didn't even-
us.
yeah,
I
he
think people just decided that after.
No, the closest thing he came to that is he said, "No one comes to the Father except through me."
Right, which is
Right.
why you'll hear that verse all the time.
Yeah.
So we have to. So he being at least half divine, he's a god,
Okay.
and so we can't be
A demigod.
polytheists anymore. We have to be monotheists and worship God and Jesus together. So the conclusive proof I have is chocolate is really good. I would say it's divine. So we're not for God. Why do we have chocolate?
You got me. You win. There's a guy.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Thank
Right.
you.
Well, and he's not
Waka.
he's not far off. Actually, chocolate contains a chemical called theobromine. So if you break that down, the etymology of the words, it's
Theo.
God, bromine,
Oh,
food,
I see.
food of the gods. So yeah.
All right.
So there you go.
Okay. Shane in, I'm going to butcher this, Manitowoc.
Manitowoc, Wisconsin, yes.
Thank you. Shane.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, first I just wanted to say thanks for what you guys are doing. And this was only my second time to catch a live show, but I bet I've probably seen most of your clips on YouTube and stuff.
Okay, you can watch the entire show if you go to atheist-experience.com and click on either the live feed or the archive. You can see full episodes instead of just clips.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, but yeah, I mean, I just discovered your show pretty recently. But
Okay?
I recently became a friend of yours on a social site.
Right.
And I had asked you a question once because I think I stopped believing in God when I was probably 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife was in church and in one of those schools her whole life, and has what she believed. I was worried about how that was going to work, but I guess I found out that she doesn't really care, which I thought was probably a rare thing because I was afraid for the worst.
Mm-hmm.
But the good thing about it is she knows what she knows, and she's never tried to push anything on me, and it's the same for me. So I thought I might have a rare case because I remember one caller, a woman, I'm not sure how long ago it was, but she was going to marry a man who was religious, and she sounded scared and out of breath and worried and was asking all kinds of questions of whoever the hosts were about teaching their kids what's going to be taught when she's not looking, potential conflicts that obviously made her afraid to get married, it seemed, but I kind of went through it too, but then I finally realized that it's going to affect us all because I expressed to my wife that I didn't think it was fair that kids at such a young age get that stuff pounded into their heads, and she agreed. And I said, well, if my kids become religious on in life, they think they need something like that, that'd be fine with me too, but I don't want someone sneaking around behind my back and because kids believe everything the adult says,
Right. Of course, if there are two adults contradicting each other, then I guess the fun begins.
Yeah.
because I mean, depending on how they're raised, that has a big influence on whether they're able to critically evaluate the two different sides and make a decision about which way they actually believe.
That's the reason that I'm glad I found you guys' show. And
and like we were saying at the beginning about positive atheism, your topic, Jen, it's important not to just back down and say, oh, well, my wife feels strongly about the religion thing and I don't feel so strongly, so I guess I shouldn't make waves. Because, I mean, you won't respect yourself that way. And that can cause some tension in the marriage. And then, but, I mean, like you said, you have a pretty, you seem to have a pretty relaxed marriage where that's concerned. I don't know the whole story, but, it's really up to you to decide what makes sense in your individual situation.
Okay, well, the best part to me, I think, was that we both knew who the other was. We met online 7 years ago, and we both knew how the other one felt, and we never actually discussed children or what they were going to be taught or what they were going to be brought up to think. But it just, right now, it looks good to me. It seems like she's not going to push anything for some other people, and I've kind of tried and work it in, but
I think you should be honest with your kids. I think you should say, there's this concept of a God. Here's what it is, as honestly as I can tell you. Your mom believes it. I don't, and here are my reasons. Your mom can tell her her reasons, but you are a free person, and you ought to decide for yourself what makes the most sense, because that's really all you can do.
Yeah, because I'm not going to. I know she's not going to, treat me bad when I'm not around and say Dad's probably going to go to hell. She doesn't even believe that.
Good.
I could do a lot of wicked things too to change, make it legitimate people. There are countless examples, and you guys cover them all the time. But I'm not going to try and do that. I just want to let my main point was that I don't think it's fair to grab kids at such a young age and just tell them that something is literally real and have them live their entire life in fear, of hell, because that seems like that's damaging goods. But
okay. Well, there are a lot of people in your situation, and I want to mention that at our blog right now, atheistexperience.blogspot.com, there's a post which is sort of, in the general sense, addressing a lot of common questions. I mean, obviously it can't get too specific because it's dealing with a category of questions, but it gives some I guess, a starting point for things to think about. And I don't know, you might want to take a look at it.
Okay, this one, yeah. Well, I know you guys are running out of time and whatever, and I couldn't even believe I actually got through, but I just wanted to mainly thank you for all that you guys are doing, and, just because there's so many people out there living in the dark who don't know that there's any option because of what I mentioned, being grabbed as a child and having it pounded into their head, and you guys are encouraging critical thinking and, trying to be rational instead of, superstitious.
Okay.
But yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys for all that you do, and I'll continue to view your show, and you guys have a good day.
All right. Well, thank you for your call, and your encouragement means a lot to us.
Yes, thank you.
And let's see, who's next? Help. Jessica in Joplin. What is MO? Missouri?
Missouri, yeah.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello, how are you guys doing?
I'm
Good.
fine. How are you?
Doing just fine. My question is more of a social application of religion and what you guys would do in my situation. I'm a loud and proud atheist here on the edge of the Bible Belt, and my husband is an atheist, wishes he was an agnostic, but raised in a strict mainstream Mormon household his entire life, whereas I was raised in a very non-religious household. It's just not even an issue.
Goody.
So something that we run into a lot is every time we go to one of his family gatherings, we have to pray. And when I say I'm passionate, I'm a passionate atheist. I mean, I really truly believe that religion, hinders progress, promotes sexism and racism and a lot of hatred. So it's something that I'm very much against. But yet, I think my marriage would be over if I stormed out of the room when they started to say grace. So, I guess my question is, what would you do in that situation?
Well, I come from a large family of theists, or I guess a large number of my extended family are theists, and of course they pray before meals and at the drop of a hat. And so, I value my relationship with them, and I don't want to just storm out, like you say. And so I just stand there, and I don't bow my head. I don't participate in any sense, but, I just wait for them to be done with it, and then we can move on.
Do you feel insulted at all? Do they understand your point of view, or do they know your point of view, and do you feel insulted
they do, and the thing is that
on it?
They do, but the thing is, I don't take it as a personal insult to me. They're just practicing their beliefs. So it's not anything that's directed at me. This is something they do anyway.
If you were hosting Thanksgiving dinner and they wanted to have say grace in your home,
then you could say no. I mean, because you're the host. It's basic courtesy to observe the rules of the house, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So prayers and smoking can happen outside on the porch.
Right. Exactly.
my husband actually at work for their Thanksgiving dinner, they, he works in an office, and they all said grace, and he was the only one. They're all very religious, and had he spoken up, it would have caused serious fallout in the long run. And so I feel even more compelled to disengage when they go into prayer and whatnot. But
I take it.
Interestingly enough, it was his two little brothers who are also raised same household who turned us on to the show, and they're listening right now. And the three
Thanks,
brothers
guys.
are bonding over their atheist experience. So thank you very much, guys.
Cool. And I take it that your husband's family doesn't know that he's an atheist, or the rest of them?
No.
Okay. Well,
he wouldn't have a family, I don't think.
I think pretty much it's his family and you follow his lead, so as long as they're not, oh look, we're out of time. I'm sorry.
Yes, that's all right.
Thank you very much
guys have
for calling.
a great time. We'll see you next week.
All right,
Okay, we got a
thanks.
few more people on the line who I'll stick around and talk to afterwards for a few minutes, but thank you everybody for watching. That's our show, and that is our awesome crew who is backstage making all this happen. Meet us at El Arroyo shortly, and we'll see you next week. Love rings! So nostalgic. Close.